One question that comes up a lot when trying to understand the Christian message is how good is good enough to get to heaven? And behind that question, I think, is the assumption that if my good works outweigh my bad works, then God will see that and He'll let me into heaven. And it's natural for people to think that way because in this world, that's how it works a lot of the time. If you do really well on a test, then you get into college. If you do really well in college, then you might get a job offer. If you do really well in your job, then you might get a promotion. And so we tend to think it's the same with God. But in the Bible, in Romans 3:23, it tells us that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. If you back up in that chapter just a little bit, it makes the point that there is no one who's righteous, no one who's good enough. One classic way to illustrate this principle is the ladder illustration. So imagine a ladder, and at the very bottom of that ladder, the lowest rung is the worst person who's ever lived. So imagine like a despotic leader who's done all this terrible stuff, and at the very top is absolute sheer perfection, and nobody's perfect. So every person falls somewhere between the bottom and the top of that ladder. Now imagine the best Christian who's ever lived, the most moral Christian who's ever lived. And some people might say, well, maybe Mother Teresa, who gave her life to help the poor. And the thing about Mother Teresa is, though, because of her Christian faith and her understanding of the gospel, if you asked her, how good are you? She would put herself very low on the ladder. She would say, I'm a 2 or a 3 or a 1, because she's really quick to own her sin, to confess her inadequacies. So if Mother Teresa is like a 2 on the ladder, where do you and I fall? What hope do we have? I think we would all say we are at best a 2, probably lower than that. So it leaves this huge gap. What did Jesus come to do? The amazing news is Jesus came to bridge that gap between how good I am and God's perfect standard of holiness and perfection and righteousness that He demands. See, because He's perfect, He says anybody who's going to come into my heaven needs to meet this standard of perfection. In 1 Timothy 2, 5, and 6, it says there is one mediator between God and man, the man Jesus Christ. See, Jesus was God, so He was perfect, but He became a man. He lived a perfect life, died on the cross for our sins. And so, yes, we are saved by good works. It's just not my works or your works. They're not that good. We're saved by the good works of Jesus. So let's help people understand that Jesus can save them. We can't save ourselves.